That is a Cobra's Fang. It's probably one of my favorite cocktails of all time. I make this drink probably 2 or 3 times a week. I'm obsessed. I think it is really emblematic of tiki. It kind of hits on all of the classic tiki themes that you're looking for in a drink. I mean, first off, it's strong. It's a kick in the face. Hamilton 151 is no joke. But it's also strong flavorfully. It has all those kitchen spice elements in like depth and darkness and like caramel from the 151. And also these sort of bright interjections by the orange juice and the lime and the passion fruit all kind of spikes upwards. So I think it's just a lovely, lovely cocktail. I know there are lots of other popular tiki drinks out there. I mean, the Mai Tai, the Jungle Bird, the Zombies, that sort of thing. But I honestly think that the Cobra's Fang is the best tiki drink there is. It's the best tiki drink that I've had. I certainly have not had all of them, although I'm working hard on that. But why don't I talk a little bit about the ingredients? So, I know that's what we came here for. So I'll start with the 151. This is Hamilton 151. It is a Demerara 151. Of course, 151 stands for the proof. 151 ABV, 151 proof, or what is it? 75.5% ABV. So, like I said, this is a kick in the pants. It's very strong, but it's lovely. It's got this rich complexity to it, which is, pretty inimitable. There are other 151s. I'm only aware of actually, I guess, 3 other kinds of 151. There's Don Q, Lemon Heart, and there is the now defunct, no longer existent Bacardi 151. Bacardi no longer exists because of a lawsuit, as it turns out. But all 3 of those are actually Puerto Rican 151s. They are not Demerara, which is an important distinction. They are not quite as deep. They're much lighter and brighter. You can make a Cobra's Fang with them. I've done it plenty of times. It's not the same drink. It's pretty close, but it's just not quite the same. So if you're really looking for this specific drink, Hamilton's the way to go. This is also crucial for zombies, for example, or undead gentlemen. So there's plenty of uses for it behind the bar. There's also falernum. If you're unfamiliar with falernum, it is basically a spiced liqueur. And when I say spiced, I don't mean habanero or jalapeno. Spiced in this case is kitchen spices. So you can buy this at the store. John D. Taylor makes a falernum, a velvet falernum, which is fine. If you're not really intensely into cocktails, or if you don't have a ton of time, John D. Taylor's will do the trick. But I'll just say it's kind of boring, and there's a lot more fun to be had with legit homemade falernum. There are a number of different ways to make it. This batch I most recently made with my brother-in-law, James. We took a slightly different approach than what I currently typically do at home. But suffice it to say, it's some sort of combination of usually high-proof rum, like Rum Fire or Wray and Nephew Overproof. And the classics are lime, clove, almond, and ginger. So some sort of combination thereof, of those 4 and then the rum. And then simple syrup, effectively a cold batched simple syrup. So you don't heat it up on the stove, you just combine equal parts sugar and water, like in a mason jar or something with no heat. It's a pain in the ass, but it does, so they say, protects a lot of the sugary flavor and adds more volume to the drink, to the substance, as opposed to heating it up. So anyway, I would highly recommend it. I'm probably going to do a separate video at some point on how I make falernum, but there are loads of recipes online, so have at it, basically. Let's see, I'll talk about the Tiki Twins. These are classic Angostura bitters and absinthe. The Angostura is Angostura. I don't really know if there's any substitute, and I don't know why you bother trying to make one. It's fantastic, so just leave it at that. I put it in these little vials because it's just easier. They're little droppers, as you can see. It's easier to control. I can much more precisely account for the amount going into each drink. So I prefer it that way, but the dashers are fine, if that's your thing. And then for absinthe, I use, it's right here, I use St. George. I think it's fine. I'm actually not super well versed in absinthe, so I'm sure there are some snobs out there who would have better recommendations for me. But this little thing costs, I think, $20, $25. It's pretty cheap. This is about, I don't know, a half cup or so of absinthe, which honestly, and I, like absinthe. This lasts me 6 months, maybe. So that's perfect. I don't have to buy those big bottles of Pernod, which is like $100 or something. This little guy does the trick. So yeah, that's what I use. And the passion fruit, I barely have anything left. I want to make some more later. But I make my passion fruit syrup at home. I'll show you what I use. I get these frozen fruit pulp things from Goya at HEB, if you're here in Texas. I'm sure Whole Foods would have it if you're elsewhere in the US, or maybe even get them online. They're super cheap. This is, I don't know, $4 or $5 maybe, dirt cheap. And all I do is I break off a chunk, usually about a third of the container. I just heat it up on the stove so it melts. I'm not cooking it, I just melt it on the stove. And then add equal parts liquid volume to sugar. So I usually do about 3/4 of a cup passion fruit to 3/4 of a cup sugar. And bam, that's your passion fruit syrup. Every time friends of mine ask me for cocktail recommendations and I talk about passion fruit syrup, they get this look on their face like, oh, it's a ton of work. It is not. This is the easiest thing I make besides actual simple syrup. So I would highly encourage it. You can, of course, buy passion fruit syrup here. I don't know how broadly distributed they are, but there's a brand here in Austin called Lieber & Co. or Lieber & Co. Liber. Don't know how it tastes. My brother uses it pretty frequently, so it can't be that bad. But for my money, this is the way to go. You can make a ton of passion fruit syrup with just one of these, so that's what I use. And then the last thing, I guess there are two more. The last things are my orange and my lime. Always, always, always use fresh fruit juices. There is really no substitute. That nasty lime juice that you get at the store is a sacrilege. It's a slap in the face. You can make, apparently, a super juice, it's called. It's sort of a lime substitute, which my brother makes to great success. I've never personally attempted it, but his is great. So that's a route, but you still need fresh lime juice in order to make super juice. So there's really no substitute. In a pinch, you can use like Tropicana or some other type of orange juice, but it's just not worth it. I mean, there's something about that hit of the orange and like the aroma, especially if you express a little bit of the peel on the top of the drink. That's just irreplaceable. So get some oranges, get some limes, and make a bunch. So none of it's going to waste. The absolute last thing is the ice. If you noticed, I have a big bin here of crushed ice. I have a little ice crusher from Waring, I believe. Yeah, Waring. And it works great. It's actually relatively small, probably 20 inches tall, I don't know, 9 inches wide or something. And I just stick it on top of my fridge when I'm not using it. But it makes great crushed ice. You can kind of see, hopefully, the texture. So that's what I use there. If you don't have crushed ice, or you don't have a way to crush ice, I will sometimes just use a shaker and shake it really hard with normal ice to sort of pulverize the ice cubes. So you can go that way too. Drink tastes just fine, but crushed ice is definitely adds a certain elegance, I'd say, a certain je ne sais quoi to the drink. So anyway, yeah, that's the Cobra's Fang. I hope you give it a try. It's one of my favorites. If you do give it a whirl, hit me up and let me know what you think. Cheers.